Why Mikel Arteta and Martin Odegaard disagreed with Arsenal fans in heated Newcastle moment. Arsenal squeezed past Newcastle United, and despite returning to the top of the league, the clashes Mikel Arteta and Martin Odegaard had with supporters sums up the feelings at the moment. Mikel Arteta might be ready for 4 more games, but I am not sure I am. I make no secret of my own leanings when it comes to Arsenal, and as such, it puts my nerves through the ringer every single game. Arsenal have won the title before, and it was far more fun, enjoyable and entertaining. Do not get me wrong, if they do pull it off, it will be celebrated just as much, probably even more. Yet, I just cannot get this feeling of absolute fear and worrying out of my mind while watching this team head toward yet another narrow victory. I found myself asking peers in the press room after the game how I could feel so much more optimistic about Arsenal's chances after they were beaten in Manchester, compared to winning on Saturday evening. And it is true, Arsenal looked like Arsenal again in Manchester, and that was so much to do with the tip of the spear being the German international. And while it wasn't perfect, how the level dropped across the front line after he left the field is perhaps what gives me this anxiousness. And it is true, Arsenal looked like Arsenal again in Manchester, and that was so much to do with the tip of the spear being the German international. And while it wasn't perfect, how the level dropped across the front line after he left the field is perhaps what gives me this anxiousness. You can see it in the stands, hear it from the fans. There is a disconnect between how this team is playing and what those in the Emirates Stadium want. There was a moment after Arsenal took their first short corner, something we've seen against sides who have a physical matchup against the Gunners, like Newcastle do with Nick Pope, Sven Botman, Dan Burn and Malik Thiaw. When Noni Madueke played it into Martin Odegaard, the groans were incredibly audible. As I often do when I hear reactions from the stands, with the press box right behind the dugouts, I look to Arteta. Unsurprisingly, he could be seen again calling for calm. He was asked post-match about the decision to go short. His words are particularly pointed. I would have to add, in everything that we do in the game, when the teams adapt to certain things, when the teams are so physical that they can defend naturally, you have to find other ways, he said. The thing that I like best is the courage of the players, because we play short, and you can see our reaction in the crowd. We did so well with the reaction. The second one, we did it again, and Ebbs shoots with his left foot and puts it out. And the third one, I was going to say another word, courage, big courage. In this moment, when the pressure is on, when the reaction is like this to play, that's exactly what I want for the team, because the players have to make the decisions, and I believe it's the best. When the goal went in, Martin Odegaard was spotted, similarly to Arteta, turning to the crowd to call for calm. Arteta turned and roared with delight, clearly pleased by his principles and strategy being stuck to, and it rewarded the team with what would be a winning goal. I empathise with both sides, particularly after what happened in the second half. Arsenal have been so good from set pieces, particularly those sent into the box aerially. You'd imagine supporters would question, why not stick with it? It was indeed a lofted corner that stole all 3 points at St James Park in the 96th minute earlier in the season. But when in the second half, Madueke again takes it short, and from the other side of the pitch, in the East Stand, the groans could still be heard, I have to question why. They've scored from it, they've proven it works. And yet that faith is still not there. And you know what? I know why. Because on a glorious sunny afternoon in London, West Ham won to keep Tottenham in the bottom 3. Everything was set up for another top performance and one to encourage the fans. But that didn't happen, and it faded even more as the game went on. The injuries to Ez and Havertz, too, although Arteta appeared upbeat on both, probably contributed. Look, Arsenal won. That is reason enough for praise, joy and optimism. Get it done. Because I am really struggling to hold the fort here. But I tell you what, Bukayosaka is enough to put a smile on even the biggest of pessimists.